So welcome to the January 2017 Greater Baltimore UU Cluster Council meeting. It's a small group gathered tonight, and we're going to talk about, whether we need to change the model a little bit. My name is Reverend David Pyle. I'm the primary contact for the Baltimore cluster from the UUA staff. We're going to begin with, we did an opening reading and we also did personal check-ins. We're going to begin with check-ins from our congregations. Those of you that are with us, if you tell us a little bit about what's happening that you're excited about in your congregation right now, something that is challenging that you'd like to share. And then I'll check in a little bit about we have two congregations on the call, so we got lots of time. I'll check in a little bit about the congregations that are not here as best I can. And as I say in all these calls, if you are watching this and you don't like what I share about your congregation, there's an easy way to solve that, and that's to join the call. So with that, who would like to share? Marty, would you like to check in for Towson?
Actually, I'd like to hear from you. I know we're under a governance change and a governance study, and there's been a lot of energy, but I have not been involved. I'm not on the board or the team right now.
So I can share that where we are with the governance process with Towson. What I can share is that I completed a draft form of it. I submitted that to the congregation, to the congregational leadership. The congregational leadership has given me feedback on that draft, and I have it scheduled to try and turn that feedback into a finalized version that can be released to the congregation. So they're really waiting on me and my schedule that was going to be this past weekend. Did I not have the flu? So the flu has delayed my work time for being able to create a finalized draft. But I met with the board and we had a very good conversation about the assessment process and about what is in the draft. So is that helpful, Marty?
It is. And I will say, as far as social justice, we continue with the Strong Adore program and a monthly meeting that's drawn out of that, which we're calling Adore for an Adore action group. And another thing we're doing is we're previewing Before the Flood, the Leonardo DiCaprio movie, tomorrow night. And we have a lot of support from Sierra Club. And anyone who wants to come and join us is welcome.
Thank you. Would one of you like to check in for what's happening at Channing Memorial?
Evelyn's on.
Okay. As you know, we are in a period of transition. We're halfway through our first year of interim ministry. We have been, Reverend Bob has joined. We're doing the monthly themes, and we do a Soul Matters discussion after many of the services. I think the exciting thing is we met with Carolyn Morrissey. The board and our Leadership Development Nominating Committee met with Carolyn Morrissey last week, and we are about ready to start the process for a search team and search committee and moving forward, and that's exciting. And let's see, I think that's probably the most exciting. I was thinking of something else a minute ago and I forgot it already, but well, no, that's part of this. Okay.
Getting ready for our annual auction.
Which
is kind of condensed because we're starting late because we don't have enough people to help. Same old. So, but we'll get it finished in 3 weeks.
The other thing that's exciting is we became a welcoming congregation about 7 or 8 years ago, but we've never really done it. We've never really attracted very many gay, lesbian, bi people, and we do have an active group that is starting up. They held an impromptu pre-New Year's Eve party, I think on about a week's notice, not on New Year's Eve, but the night before, and I think about 25 of us showed up, so from the congregation. So I think that's kind of exciting.
Wonderful. Well, and I also know that I get to come down and be with you all for a Sunday on February 23rd for
26.
20, well, somewhere at 26. Then it's somewhere. It's that Sunday around there. But I get to come down and be there for a sermon and a workshop, a mission vision workshop. So I'm excited about getting to come do that. And to seeing you all again. So
Good, yes. We're looking
that.
forward to it.
yeah, we had thought about doing something else for that weekend, but when Reverend Bob and I got to talking, we realized that was where you all, especially moving into the beginnings of a search process, what would be the most helpful for you all right now would be to really help you all to get some tools around discerning that, so that you can share who you are and what your purpose is with potential candidates next year. So, so great. So what I wanted to do, we picked one of the questions that came up when we talked back, because our last meeting was actually in November. So one of the things we talked about back then was that the justice program for the Central East region was actively changing, and how we were going. And so what I'm bringing to you all is the 90% done vision of what that program is going to look like. So part of this is why sharing it with you, so that you all have awareness. The other is so that you all can let us know if you think we're off track, if because there's still space for us to make some adaptations. And one of the core things in it is really us knowing what our role as the regional staff is. The UUA has about as complex and large a justice infrastructure as I've ever heard of anywhere. Between the UU Service Committee to state action networks, to Standing on the Side of Love, to the College of Social Witness, there's just so much that's out there that is part of justice work. And amidst the organizations that are being built at the local and cluster level amongst many of our congregations, congregations that are building chapters of Showing Up for Racial Justice or Black Lives Matter, and there's just all kinds of pieces there. So we really have spent a lot of time, basically this last year, discerning what is the role of the regional staff. So I'm gonna share screen for a second, and I'm going to show you all, I'm going to walk you all through the vision document. Once again, now you can see where to go. Here we go. Now you're going to see it's still not finalized. We're still crossing out some stuff and putting some other stuff in place. Now where did you all go? So Zoom just updated, and in Zoom updating, it has moved stuff around. Okay, so now I can see you all and the screen. Can you all see the screen?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So, the first piece that we've realized in doing this discernment is that we are not doing the region is not going to be doing issue-based justice work. We're not going to be advocating for particular issues with one exception, and that one exception is racial justice. That we integrate racial justice throughout all the whole of regional training, not just justice training. But we really, as a team, made the decision that we are making the commitment to focus our engagement with congregations through the dual lens of anti-racism and anti-oppression, and intercultural and multicultural competency. That one of them is how to help our congregations grow to being anti-racist and anti-oppressive entities in their community, and how to grow our own capacity and awareness of bias and privilege, right? So to think of those two lenses. But most of our justice work is going to be non-issue based justice services. So if your congregation is committed to environmentalism, how do we help you be the most effective environmental advocates that you can be? If your congregation is committed to ending mass incarceration, how do we help connect you and help you be the most effective you can be at that? In the old model, we had the idea that there was a program manager who was designing a regional program around justice. And that person in that position was me. And we realized a couple things. One, that was entirely too big to try and create a program that rested in 10 states, right? Because the issues are not the same. And what congregations are experiencing in those 10 states are not the same. Two, having one person trying to work to build capacity of 198 congregations was also not a brilliant idea, especially if that person also has other jobs, like being a primary contact. So we are integrating the work of helping to build congregational capacity building around justice into the roles of each of the primary contacts. So just as you would call your primary contact for support on mission and vision, or you would call your primary contact for support on staffing and doing a good staffing hire, our primary contacts are now all being trained to be able to work with congregations on the kinds of issues that congregations most often face related to justice work. So that it's not one consultant working in that area in the region, it's 9 working that have capacity to help congregations with justice work in the region. Does that make sense? Do you get the shift, the mental shift that we've made in that?
Yes.
It's meaning we're doing some additional training amongst our team. Some of our team did bring some experience at doing congregational based justice work, but not all of them. So we're building up some capacity amongst our teams. We've also decided that one person does need to be a program manager coordinating that. And for a lot of reasons, we have made the decision that that person is the Reverend Megan Foley, the regional lead. To make justice central in all of the programming we do, it needed to be in the portfolio of the regional lead. So that, just so you know, what I picked up when handing that off, what I picked up was coordinating the adjunct consultant program for the region. So all the ways we help lay leaders like yourself be available to other congregations. That doesn't mean I'm not doing justice work, because I am a primary contact, and the justice work is primarily in the primary contacts lane right now. So I'm doing justice work with the three clusters that I'm the primary contact for. Does that make sense how that works?
Yes.
So it doesn't change a lot for you all, because I was the Justice Ministry Program Manager. It just means now I get to focus on the congregations I work with the most often. All right. So we will be creating occasional workshops and trainings and events driven by congregational demand. So, for example, we have done in the DC area there, the cluster in DC has been doing a lot of work around organizing around Black Lives Matter. So we have helped them by creating some workshops and trainings and forums around Black Lives Matter. You all have been doing quite a bit of organizing around Adore. And so we are, one of the things that we have now approved the funding for is every cluster to sometime in this church year and the beginning of the next church year to have a cluster-based racial justice conference that is being funded by the region. We may ask for a little money to pay for lunch, but we field tested this in Philadelphia back in the fall, and it was a resounding success with over 60 participants. And with coming out of that, they're now doing their own Jubilee program. The UUA can no longer do Jubilee programs. The last one we will be able to officially be doing is the one we are doing in the DC area, I think next month. But beyond that, congregations can do Jubilee programs. The UUA cannot. And that's a part of the relationship between the UUA and Crossroads, who owns the Jubilee curriculum, right? The Jubilee program. We're working on that relationship, and that may change, but for the moment, that's where we are. We need to stay in good relationship with the people whose program that is. That does not mean that congregations cannot work directly with a Jubilee consultant, such as Paula Cole-Jones. It's just outside of the UUA. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And I think we're going to get that relationship fixed, but there's work that needs to be done. And individual teams may work with specific work. Like if you all are really going to do a mass incarceration, that doesn't mean I can't help you or be part of that. It just means I need to get that cleared with the regional lead for me to do that. But the point we want to be in is we're not promulgating issues. We're not pushing issues on congregations is the main point of that. Our next thing is for us to really be encouraging congregational justice network building. So our real focus is going to be how do we support you amongst the congregations of an area in connecting with networks or building networks around justice. For example, the Philadelphia area congregation, not Philadelphia, the Pittsburgh area congregations have really come together through an interfaith effort that called PIN. I can't remember what PIN stands for, but the congregations have all joined this larger interfaith justice network around racial justice. And so we're supporting them in that and providing some registration support and other connecting support. For some congregations, it's really connecting with their state advocacy networks and letting that be their major connection. Some of the ones in central Pennsylvania, for example. So really, it's not us creating a justice network because there is no political entity that matches the Central East region of the UUA. So the justice networks need to be more local. How can we as your regional staff support you in creating networks or joining networks that you can be a part of? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. That also is us coordinating and convening congregations on behalf of the UU Justice universe. So how can we leverage our ability to bring congregations together so that you have a deeper connection with the College of Social Witness, with the UUSC? Because one of the challenges we've learned is that congregations, our wider UUA justice universe, which is my term, what I call it, they don't always understand congregations all that well. UUSC, their lens isn't a congregational lens, right? Standing on the Side of Love, Caitlin Breedlove, who is the director of Standing on the Side of Love, she's never been the chair of a social justice committee in a UU congregation. Yeah. It's not a lens they have. So our role as a regional staff is to, in some ways, translate the wider justice universe for you and translate congregational justice programs for them, right? To help. So part of this is a thing that goes both ways. I had a call last month with some members of Standing on the Side of Love, processing with them why one of their campaigns wasn't connecting with congregations. And there's reasons why, and part of it is congregations, at least Unitarian Universalist congregations, are really not very happy with somebody outside of the congregation trying to tell them what they should be working on. That's not who we are, right? It's more that congregations want support in working on what they feel called to work on. You get that piece about the two levels, about us helping them understand, helping the wider justice universe understand congregations, and helping what they're doing translate into congregational life. So the next thing is that we have chosen one member of our team to serve as liaison to each of the state action networks. And that is a relationship not necessarily that the congregations are directly involved in. That means the board or the governing entity of that state action network knows they have one member of the regional staff that is their point of contact. For example, Megan Foley is the connection, the liaison to the Maryland State Advocacy Network. It's not me. I'm the connection right now to two of them, to UU Plan and to the Delaware Action Network. But the Maryland board will have the direct relationship with Megan Foley, and she may be sending information out and helping them to translate their work with you.
These don't even make sense.
So the last piece, last two pieces, is we are focusing on providing training and providing experiences for congregations that increase multicultural growth and witness awareness. And we have a big one of those coming up at Fairfax on April 15th that is Building Authentic Diversity with Reverend Rob Keithan and Reverend Rebecca Montgomery. That is a reschedule. It was going to happen January 21st, but we decided that was not a good day to do an event because of the Women's March. So we've moved that to April 15th. So the intercultural multicultural competency is our main priority right now of doing congregational capacity building, and we'll continue to do some work around that. We're also going to be leveraging the UU Leadership Institute to provide justice training, and what that's going to look like is in partnership with the Commission on Social Witness. I'm sorry, not the commission. With the even I get confused by the entire justice universe. With the UU College of Social Justice, to be providing online training in justice building capacity for congregations. The last two things I want to say is we are continuing the work that Paula Cole Jones has been doing within the JPD and broadening that to the region. We have a plan in place to continue her work with congregations, and it's transitioning a little bit mostly in how she does it. But I wanted you all to hear that relationship is not going away. The other thing is that we have also added to our team and our staff some direct support for UUs of color. This is part of the Black Lives of UU program, but also is from having the Reverend Hope Johnson on our staff, as she has taken that on of doing some direct coaching and mentoring work with UUs of color. So that's kind of the presentation. I'll stop there and ask if there are any questions. I'll take us off screen share for the moment. That's the revisioning that we have done around justice, the Central East region's role in justice work among our congregations. Any thoughts you all have or anything you want to ask?
That's overwhelming, David.
Yeah.
And I mostly just want you all to see it and begin to grasp it, and to see that we've actually been doing a lot of real work around rethinking that programming.
Where do you see our relationship with UUSJ, especially because it's so close by, and standing up for racial justice, which I've just begun to get affiliated with, and we're having a really hard time building some faith-based relationships with them? Yeah.
So it depends on the area. There are some areas that have made showing up for racial justice being one of their primary ways that the congregations are interconnected. Remember, our role as regional staff is kind of being the bridge. Kind of helping people to make those connections. So I have some connections, and all of our staff have some connections with showing up for racial justice. And if we can help you to help bring congregations together around that, that's kind of what our role in that would be. UUSJ, as in UUSJ in the National Capital Region, is that what you're referring to?
You're right.
So that's the piece that's they're kind of like a state action network, but they're not.
You're right.
And the piece there, that the conversation that we're having, is whether that relationship, the liaison for that relationship, needs to not be just with the Central East region, but needs to be with the national UUA staff group, Multicultural Growth and Witness staff group, directly with the Queen of Boston, in other words.
We should be.
Well, and that's the point that we're in conversation about. Just having a liaison to the Central East region for UUSJ doesn't really meet the need. But there is, all church politics extend beyond the individual congregation and multiply in the denomination. So we're in those conversations about what the relationship to the Multicultural Growth and Witness Office is, especially since there used to be a more formal relationship that with staff cuts and everything changed, is my understanding. So that's the best answer I can give you. The short version of that answer is to say that's no longer in my lane.
Okay, so talk to Megan.
Well, actually, I think it may not be in Megan's lane for very much longer.
Oh.
Because UUSJ is not designed as a state action network. It's not a organization for lobbying in DC. Of the DC government. No,
but it's lobbying on Congress. It's advocacy
for the national.
Yes.
So, you see, so just having a liaison to the Central East region staff gets you 1/5 of what you need.
Okay.
You see the point I'm making? We could be wrong. I would rather that connection be directly through the Multicultural Growth and Witness Office, which is also in DC.
It is?
Yes, the UUA's Multicultural Growth and Witness is in DC.
Through whom?
To Queen of Boston's office.
Okay.
So
Okay.
we can make that connection.
Well, I'm sure Lavona has.
Yeah, Lavona and Tequina are closely connected.
I just need to inquire.
Yep. So with that, any other questions? I know it's overwhelming. You'll hear about it more. I just wanted to give you all kind of a thumbnail of where we're going.
So our next big program is April 15th in Fairfax.
That's the big one until we find out when Paula is negotiating the Greater Baltimore Cluster Racial Justice, conference,
Okay.
which the funding has been approved for. We are just looking at she's. I'm not in the zone of her logistical negotiations at the moment. So, but yes, for racial justice. So let's do that. Let me share screen again, and let's talk about upcoming programming.
Okay.
All right, can you all see the screen?
Do you need your notebook?
All right, upcoming programming.
I'm going to cut out at this point. I got to go
All right.
sing.
Go sing,
And
and we will send this out so that you all will see what's on this page later.
Very good. Thank
So,
you.
First U Baltimore, February 10th through 12th, they're doing the 200th anniversary. Reverend
Right.
Peter Morales is going to be there. I have cleared my schedule to be there that Sunday for that event, so I hope we all are able to come together then. The stewardship workshop that was scheduled for February 14th has been moved to for January 14th was moved to February 11th. It's not a wonderful decision. I wish we hadn't had to do that, and it kind of turned out we didn't have to because the weather didn't
Was
do what they
nice.
said it was going to do. So,
you never know.
but you never know, and we did that. But it's been moved to February 11th. So it's still an opportunity for people to come, and people who registered and couldn't make the earlier one, we're going to record it and make it video available to those who can't come to on February 11th. The Stopping the Revolving Door, How to Keep Visitors, which is an idea that has come from you all. It's going to be a webinar. It's probably going to be in May. We are doing the planning for what that curriculum looks like now. Some of the things and exercises that are planned for an in-person thing won't work in an hour webinar, hour and 15-minute webinar. But that webinar may actually be going national. So, but it's coming from you all. So you all will get first dibs, but we're now looking at a May timeframe for that, probably mid-May. Strategic Board Workshop, February 4th at the UU Church of Lancaster, which isn't exactly close, but it's not terribly far. We've had 45 registrants so far for that one. So I'm looking forward to doing that one. For those that were at part 1, which was the board basics course at Cedarhurst in the fall, this is part 2, but you don't have to have attended part 1 to attend part 2. Part 1 is about your role as a board member. Part 2 is about how to function as a board together, right? So that's the difference between the two. It's going to cover not just the 5 strategic tasks of a board, it's also going to cover confidentiality, it's going to cover boundaries and board covenants, it's going to cover a lot of board techniques and practices, what a consent agenda is and how to use it. It's really kind of an all-purpose class on how to be an effective board. And I get to do it, so it's fun. The care and feeding of volunteers. This is my most favorite workshop to do ever. I love this workshop. It's April 15th. It's the same time as the Authentic Diversity in Fairfax.
Yeah.
It's not, it's a wish that's just the kind of thing that sometimes happens. It is a workshop about creating a culture of gratitude in a congregation. We'll be offering it again. I offered it in Delmarva in the fall. We're offering it in central Pennsylvania in the spring, and we can offer it in Greater Baltimore next fall if you want. And this is a great one because it's already in the box. We can just pull it out. And it's a fun one where a lot of the workshops that we do are death by PowerPoint. This one is not. This one involves coloring. It involves playing with clay sometimes. It's really a activity-based kind of workshop. And it's really about understanding how to thank volunteers. because the point, one of the point is you pay volunteers with gratitude and recognition, and yet that's more complex than it sounds. How to do that well is more complex than it sounds. Not everybody needs to be thanked the same way, right? So it's a fun workshop. Lay pastoral care workshop. This is there's going to be 2 versions of this one. This one is also in the box and can be done. This is basically a training for pastoral care associates and for caring committees, for people who are going to do lay leaders who are doing pastoral care within a congregation. We can find the date for this one. Harrisburg has asked for it as they are restarting up a new pastoral care team, and they've not had any workshops in a while. So we're going to go do that one for them probably in late May. But if Harrisburg is too far, this is one we could bring to Baltimore as well. All we have to do for that one is find the date and the location. And then the small congregations workshop, which is really designed, which is actually a membership workshop. It's how to keep visitors in the small congregation. So this is kind of the stopping the revolving door workshop, but specifically focused on small congregational experience.
How large is small?
Under 130 is really the target audience they're looking at there. So basically, and a lot of them are under 90.
Okay.
But really under 130. And that's going to be March 18th at UU Gettysburg. Reverend Megan Foley is leading that one. So before I go on, is there anything that we have that you all are wanting us to be working on as a possible workshop for the Baltimore cluster? I mean, I ask this question every month. You don't have to have an answer every month, right? Because if we answer every month, then that's 12 workshops for me to work on. So be thinking about it. Next time we come together, we'll ask the question again. Know that I'm always going to ask. So if not, then let me tell you about the other things we got upcoming. So April 1st, the Leadership Day, which now is going to happen in 4 locations across the region. There may be a 5th, because there is another event that may choose to make itself part of the Leadership Day in York, Pennsylvania. But the Leadership Day is kind of the district, what the district assembly used to be. And it is going to be in the local area. The site is going to be at Cedar Lane in Bethesda, and but it's also going to be, there's an event in Columbus, there's an event in Cleveland, there's an event in Rochester, and there may be another one in York, and there may be another one in Metro New York City at one of the congregations there. Each of them have workshops and trainings, in-person workshops and trainings as a part of them. The one in Bethesda is also going to include a meeting of the Joseph Priestley District Board to talk about regionalization and maybe to elect new board members. We'll see. We're going to decide that this weekend, whether that's needed or not. And the big feature position for that event is going to be an in-person debate at Cedar Lane. So the other sites are going to have it streaming. But at Cedar Lane, an in-person debate by the 3 candidates for the UUA president.
Good.
So all 3 have committed to be there in person, and they will be there the whole day. So not only are they going to be at the debate, they are also going to then have booths and be around to have one-on-one time with congregational lay leaders. So be letting your congregations know that, Reverend Susan Frederick Gray, Reverend Allison Miller, and Reverend Jeannie Pupke will all be present there at Cedar Lane. And there is an online tool that if you go to the event page on uua.org/CER, and you click on events and then click on that April 1st Leadership Day, there's a place where you can submit questions.
Good.
So be thinking about questions that you might like to have asked of those candidates, and let that be known in your leadership system and among your leadership. Now they're not going to ask every question that just gets asked. They're going to collate them and turn them into, because I expect they'll get a lot of questions about finances. So they'll pick a couple, and it won't be, but they want it. The committee is really asking for what people want to know. And the 3 workshops at the Bethesda at the Cedar Lane one, the 3 workshops that'll be happening, there'll be the JPD meeting in the morning, followed by the presidential forum, the presidential debate, then lunch. Then there will be a 3-hour block for workshops, and it's you choose 1 workshop out of 3. Each of the workshops is going to last 3 hours. So it's time for us to go deep with them. And the 3 workshops are a stewardship workshop beyond the annual campaign being done by Mark Ewert and Bill Klontz from Stewardship for Us. So all the types of stewardship that's not the annual campaign, capital campaigns, special fundraising asks, auctions, all of those kinds of fundraising, that's what they're doing. So this is the other side of what Barry Finkelstein is doing on February 11th in Columbia. The next one is pastoral care in times of challenge. And this is really about pastoral care during trauma, both personal trauma, but also societal trauma. It's going to spend a good bit of time on pastoral care and social justice. And the person leading that is a U.S. Army chaplain by the name of David Pyle.
All right.
And I may be bringing in a couple other people, but that's I get to put on my other hat and really do that workshop as a trauma chaplain. The other is congregational outreach and growth, being led by Kerry McDonald, who is the outreach director for the UUA. We're bringing him in from Boston to do his workshop on how to do outreach and growth for Unitarian Universalist congregations. So Kerry's great, and he's the person that nationally teaches this for us. So we're really excited that we get him for that event. So any questions about the April 1st Leadership Day? I do have one other thing to say is that we will be sending out the ability for people to watch that couldn't get to Bethesda for people to watch the live stream of the debate for those that can't get there. And congregations can host their own watch parties for that live stream if they want to. We encourage everybody in Baltimore to go to Bethesda, right? It's not that far.
No.
But, we still know that some people maybe can't. So that is going to be available for people to see. The other things I'll say that we haven't talked about, the only thing we haven't talked about is I have Wednesday, January 25th, the 4th Wednesday of every month. So the Wednesday right before this call, we have what we call the Presidents and Leaders Roundtable. And that is and I think Evelyn was on it last night.
I keep getting the meetings mixed up.
You do. So this is not Baltimore cluster. This is all 198 congregations in the Central East region. And it's designed for congregational leaders and presidents. I do host that meeting, but we have a UUA staff member on to provide a 15-minute 5 good ideas in something. We're also going to be adapting it, and we're going to do this. The first time we'll do this will be the March meeting. We're going to be bringing in some national staff and letting national staff talk to our congregations about some of the national issues. And so the one on April 5th, we'll be bringing in Nori Gall from the UUA staff group of Stewardship and Development to talk about the changes that are coming in the annual program fund, the ways that congregations fund the UUA. The 2 big changes that she'll be talking about will be moving to a unified ask this coming fall. So that means there will no longer be a separate check to the Central East region or the JPD and a separate check to the UUA, that it's all one thing, one ask. And then the plan that the UUA Board of Trustees approved in the October meeting, and their most recent October meeting, to move the entire association away from the by-member pledge and towards a percentage of common expenses.
Thank you.
Yeah. And she'll be on to talk about timing of that and to talk about, what we learned from the gift program, the experiment in the Southern region, and why they're having to adapt the formula and do some real good work, but heavy work that takes some time. So why we're probably looking at about a 2-year implementation timeline. So Nori Gall will be on to talk with us all about that. So that'll be March, the fourth Wednesday of March. So and we talked about the Small Congregations Workshop and the Building Authentic Diversity Workshop with Rob Keithan and Reverend Rebecca Montgomery in Fairfax on April 15th. So there's the soliloquy of my letting you all know what's going on, and those of you that are watching on the video. So any questions about upcoming programming for me?
Don't think so.
All right. So I have a request from the November meeting that we didn't do this month because the data is not out yet. I'm probably thinking that this might be for our March meeting. The future featured conversation topics. So what I share with you all, what I research and bring to you all, is what's the plan for General Assembly? Is kind of an update, and maybe we think about that for March or April, because we'll know by then. The other thing I wanted to bring up was an idea to do something different with this that Central Pennsylvania came up with. And that was the idea that instead of my necessarily every month doing a presentation for you all, what if we asked a big question and then just had a conversation amongst us? Central Pennsylvania has decided that their big question that they want to engage, they came up with 4 or 5, but one of the questions that they're probably going to engage is how each of their congregations engages conflict. Because they've been through a time of some significant conflict over the last 3 years or so in a lot of those congregations in Central Pennsylvania. And a lot of them are in interim ministries right now because of that conflict that happened 3 or 4 years ago. So that's the kind of ideas. It doesn't always have to be my researching something. It could also be a big question that we choose to then have a 15, 20-minute conversation about together. So just a thought. So is there any other ideas you all have for things that we could present or talk about in the future featured conversation topics?
I don't know if this is the time, but I wanted to talk about our music festival.
I think that's an important one.
Yeah, it is. And we kind of made some executive decisions because we had a little bit of money left from concessions. We thought we didn't have a fund that we could dedicate to the cluster. So we thought if we put it into our music committee, we could turn it around as a padding for next year's festival. And what we would like to do, if it's acceptable with the cluster, is instead of calling it really a cluster festival, we would call it a festival for the cluster. And that way we could still handle all the logistics at Towson, but everyone would be welcome to participate and enjoy. Does that make sense?
It makes sense to me.
Okay.
But we have a small gathering today because of the things we talked about before.
Well, and it's January, and we're talking about September.
Yeah. So how about we'll book that for either the February or the March meeting, and we'll see how turnout comes. We probably need to have made those decisions by the April meeting.
Definitely.
Right. Yeah. But
the other thing that I had was, are we communicating what we're doing as a cluster with the individual church communications people, the ones who are putting it in their monthly or, in their newsletters, and with board leadership?
So that's also a really good conversation. I know that one of the things that we are sharing stuff amongst ourselves, hoping that then cluster representatives receive that email and send it to appropriate places in your congregation.
I'm trying to, but I don't know that I always do it.
And that's been the plan so far. Is that working? The other option is we could get whoever your communications person is, we can get them on the cluster email list if they want to be on it.
Excellent idea.
So whoever you all want to have on the cluster email list, all you have to do is tell me and send me that in an email with their email, and I make that happen. It's about a 45-second thing for me to add somebody to the cluster list.
Hey, I can do that at my church, but how do we know all those congregations who aren't online are going to be able to do that?
That's most congregations have someone who is online. The question is, they're not, we can't add people who haven't volunteered to be added.
Okay.
So I would love to be able to, we could add the administrators of all the congregations.
Excellent.
And we could probably do that without permission, but I would be leery of that, right? I'm always cautious about adding people to email lists without.
Why?
Because people get upset about that. And it's hard to tell who is going to get upset about it. But
Okay.
I think main congregational emails, which are usually to an administrator, are probably fine. So let me take that on as a technical task for myself, and what I'll do is I'll add the main congregational email.
Thank you.
So what's any other possible conversations for us going forward?
Probably, but I can't think off the top of my head, but
Y'all can think over time. Know that we're going to ask this question every month. And next month, why don't we have the featured conversation topic on communications, and both cluster communications, but also on the Central East Regional Communications. And, we have a communications consultant who manages communications for the region. Her name is Beth Casebolt, and she's also a communications consultant available to congregations. So I have and we can talk about all the ways that she's been shifting some broader email lists and other things within the region as well. But we can talk about communication strategies for the cluster and beyond. Does that sound like a good conversation next month?
Yes.
sounds good.
There we go. So now that we have that captured, the last two things we have are the next meeting date, which is scheduled for February 23rd, 2017. Look forward to seeing you all there. This is one of the few times that I will actually be meeting with you all before I meet with Central Pennsylvania, because theirs is not till February 28th, just how the Tuesdays fall, the Tuesdays and Thursdays. So any last thoughts? I will continue to try and remind people. I wondered if I need to send out the agenda like 3 times beforehand.
Maybe.
I mean, I usually try and send it out 4 days before, but that may not be soon enough. So I will think about that, and let's also continue to talk about whether what we need to do is come together in person and have a conversation about how we want to be together.
Good.
So I'm not going to make any plans for that yet. What I am going to do is reach out to each of the ministers, and I've talked to the boards. We sent letters to the boards. We've talked to them. I think this time I'm just going to go and use ministerial guilt on my ministerial colleagues, that they don't necessarily have to be here, but to be able to have some representation. So with that, any last minute thoughts? So with that, I'm going to close this with another reading from our hymnal, because I love the hymnal. I haven't told this. When I was you all may not know this, but when one of the things that I've had the privilege to do was to found the UU military ministries at the Great Lakes Naval Station, which has been going on now for 10 years, presenting Sunday morning worship for the basic training recruits at the Great Lakes Naval Station. They've had over 6,000 or 7,000 recruits come in and attend UU worship over the last 10 years, and one of the things that would happen would be they would take the hymnals, because they wanted something to read that was religious and spiritual, and us getting the hymnals back from the Navy recruits was always a challenge, because we only had 30. But this is one of my favorite readings that they would bring to me to ask me about. It's number 567, "To Be of Use," by Marge Piercy. I want to be with people who submerge in the task, who go into the fields to harvest and work in a row and pass the bags along, who stand in the line and haul in their places, who are not parlor generals and field deserters, but move in a common rhythm when the food must come in or the fire be put out. The work of the world is common as mud. Botched, it smears the hands, crumbles to dust. But the thing worth doing well done has a shape that satisfies, clean and evident. Greek amphores for wine or oil, Hopi vases that held corn, are put in museums, but you know they were made to be used. The pitcher cries for water to carry, and a person for work that is real.
Mm.
With that, and thank you for this work that has been real this evening. Go have a wonderful day. I'll have the video up in a day or two.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
See ya.